So in 2011, myself and my husband, both unemployed amongst us, the two of us, we have 7 children. I didn't give birth to all of them. And we ended up not having anywhere to stay, literally nowhere to go, a few days of walking around with our kids, not knowing where we're going to sleep tonight. We eventually found a backyard, and somebody's backyard, and the person said, you can live here, but you still have to pay. Wasn't that much, but because we were both unemployed, of course, we were still struggling to cope. My husband would collect scrap and take it away, etc., and tried always, all the different ways to survive. Then came the great news by this local organization who said there would be land available for people. And we had to pay a price. There was a cost. We got plot numbers. We attended several meetings where the leadership would walk up and down speaking to the mayor. And of course, according to us, this was a legal process. After we got our plot numbers, we were given a date, and we ended up on this piece of land where 5,000 other people with the same kind of issues ended up living or occupying, we found out later. We then ended up living there on this plot, taking everything that we have from the backyard, and we put it up on this piece of land. To our surprise, 3 days later, the anti-land invasion unit that was set up by the government to protect private property pitched up with the law enforcement, and they completely destroyed everything we had, from our shacks to our clothes, which means we had absolutely nothing at the time. A lot of the 5,000 people resisted for about a week or so, but many couldn't and went back to either where they came from or seeked other spaces to live. Myself and my husband, unfortunately, we couldn't move, and we ended up with really the most vulnerable people who were really sick at HIV/AIDS, disabled, youth who originally had no direction, who was homeless, and that was the group of people who ended up resisting with us. We were allowed to live on this field, but not allowed to put up a structure. And for me, this was very confusing, because how could we live there but not put up a structure? They would consider a shopping trolley with a blanket over a structure and remove that. Every single day we were harassed by police. They wouldn't have any name tags on. There would be insulation tape covered on the name tags, and they would beat people up, take everything you have and put it on a truck and then just leave. And unfortunately for us, this was in the heart of the winter. And we would stand there in the rain with our children, not knowing what to do, which way to go, and they just didn't care. It was just before the elections, and very soon we realized we were actually just used as a political football, because in the middle of the night, all the political parties would sneak in, come and visit us on the field, give us all these nice stories about if we vote for them, they will come and they will sort us out after the elections, etc., etc. We, the group that was there, not being activists, we didn't know anything about what was going on, but what we did know is something's wrong. How can post-apartheid, after all the promises, people still be living in these kind of conditions, and nobody responds? The government just doesn't care. We ended up blocking everybody. You know, we don't want any political parties on this field. We want to hear nothing. We're going to figure things out for ourselves. We were then introduced to an NGO called ILRIC, which is the International Labour Research and Information Group. And this NGO at the time had a community activist cause where they would give workshops and information around local government and democracy and public power and all these kinds of things that activists actually need to know. So my first experience, I've been taken to this NGO, and I walk into this room, and here people are busy with this workshop, and all over the world is pasted neoliberalism, capitalism, and privatization, and I'm thinking, oh God, I don't belong here. I don't know what's happening. I need a place to stay. How is capitalism and neoliberalism going to assist me? I don't need to be here. And having not finished school, I didn't know anything. I was like, and to be honest, my first few visits to this community activist course was about having access to a toilet, having access to be able to wash our faces, and etc. We had no services where we were living. We were literally using the field. We were right by the railway, but the railway government instructed the railway to close their public toilets so that we don't have access to water. And so this is all the tactics to get us to move. And yeah, then in continuing to attend the school, this community activist course, a group of people on the field, I think the learning process for us started. We went there, we took in all the information and all the coffee that they have and all the bread that they had and all the extras went home. Yeah, so to be honest, in the beginning it was all about surviving. It was not about the political education. I wouldn't even call myself an activist at the time. But we learned a lot there. I, in the process, started to write a book. Wasn't intended for a book at the time. It was just about, let's document what's happening to us, and if we figure out who's going to assist us, this information might be of some use. We then ended up going to court. We were actually surprisingly marginalized by other social movements who decided to talk on our behalf at the court, who wouldn't give us the platform, or, you know, basically because we didn't know what was going on, and half we were happy that other people were talking, and then we felt that, no, but we need to say something, and we just weren't allowed to do that. Through this community activist cause, and because we were forced, when we went to this course, this wasn't our information, we had to take it back to the field. We would sit around the fire at night and we would have discussions about what we learned there. And I think me learning there and having to take it back taught me a lot in the process, yeah. The experience on the field got worse. People started to dig holes and they started to live underground, which was so crazy unhealthy because it was winter and it was cold and there was no way that people can live underground. To a point where we had a baby who passed away on the field because of lung infection, and the state and the government had no feelings towards what was happening to us. The baby died and it was handed back to us. And because I was the so-called spokesperson at the time, the baby was handed to me in a plastic bag. And we had no money to bury this child. We in fact didn't know what to do with this dead body. That child's mother since haven't recovered from that horrible experience. Then because there was nobody to bury this child, and this was a Christian child from a Christian family, we had to go to anybody, and the mosque they offered, and they buried the child, and he had to change his name so that he could be buried. And yeah, that's the extremes we have to go through in terms of trying to survive in Cape Town in South Africa. A little bit about the history. So all these promises made in 1994, of course, none of it changed. In fact, informal settlements has more than doubled today. There's more informal settlements than there was in apartheid. So people are facing eviction on a regular basis, being evicted on a regular basis, yeah, so through this community activist cause, we met a lot of other activists who came from different communities, and they all had either the same experience going through it or still facing eviction, and that is what taught us a lot. We then, through this course, decided that this is not an individual issue, this is not for one community, this is a housing crisis. Through the research that we've done, we've seen that across the country, people are either homeless, living in backyards, living in informal settlements, and living in TRAs, which is temporary relocation areas where government, and we call it concentration camps, where government, wherever you're being evicted from, if by luck they give you an alternative, they'll put you in this, what we call a concentration camp. One of the areas, the TRAs, who works very closely to the housing assembly, is called Blikkiesdorp. Now, Blikkies in Afrikaans is an Afrikaans word, but in English it means tin. So it's really like a group of everybody in a tin, you know, a tin of sardines, just people just put in there. It's an enclosed camp and 17,000 people with one law enforcement van, no services, just your communal tap, your one toilet for about 12 families. Yeah, it's crazy. There's no shops, no schools, so a lot of children that's not going to school because they've been moved from the area where they're from into this TRA, and they can't afford, or parents can't afford to send them to the schools where they used to go to. So from grade 1 right up to grade 12, children not able to attend school, and government doesn't care. So in starting this organization, or seeing the need for this organization called the Housing Assembly, we got together many people and realized that this struggle for decent housing for all is actually what's going to unite us in Cape Town. There's a huge backlog only in Cape Town for over 500,000 people who is living in bad housing conditions. Then there's the lucky ones who considered themselves lucky. They had received social housing, which is called the RDP houses. But really, those houses are so disgusting. It's smaller than the shacks people used to live in. There's a joke that people always make. They say, don't go into the front door too fast. You'll move out the back door immediately, because the front door is here and the back door is right there. The rooms are so small, you can literally only put a bed in there. They don't care so much that every single house has the same key. So I can open my door, I can open your door, I can open everybody's door with the same key. If you do that on the floor, there's holes in the floor. People move in today and their roof blows off tomorrow. Places have even caught fire because of the electricity that has been, you know, everything was cheap, in other words. So these houses are built on the outskirts, far away, cheap land, cheap material is being used. They, in fact, put on the plan that they're using more sand than cement to build these houses, and they have no shame. On the plan, they say to people, you're going to get a solar geyser and all other stuff, but in fact, that didn't happen. People moved into row houses where it's literally falling apart even before you. And so many people move in, but they move out again, because they end up renting out their houses. They can't afford to maintain, they can't afford to fix the house, and then those who can afford end up moving there, and people end up in backyards again. So I've got 5 minutes. Yeah, so that's my story, and there's a lot more I can say about that, but let me not dwell on that. So the organization, the Housing Assembly, is launched in 2014, and we're basically just a baby, crawling, finding our feet, but the organization has since made a huge impact, to a point where the Minister of not housing anymore, the Minister of Human Settlement, has said that she anticipates similar to Fees Must Fall movement around housing, because the Housing Assembly has been doing the work in the areas. And we've divided the city of Cape Town into 6 districts. Yeah, and in each district we do the same work. We do the door-to-door, having taken into consideration the history and what has worked in the past and what hasn't worked, reflecting on that. We do door-to-door on a regular basis, where we speak to people on a one-on-one. People are ashamed of being poor. They're ashamed of having high water bills. They're ashamed of having high electricity bills, and their houses are falling apart, and they half blame themselves. But as soon as we walk into that door and we sit down and we speak to them, people are they almost relieved that they're not the only ones going through this. So there's many things that we do throughout the organization in order to ensure that we continue to hold and sustain this organization that is much needed within Cape Town. So we do the door-to-door, we have street meetings, we do speak outs that works very well. People just come up and they speak, and others are inspired by that, and they go up and they want to speak too as well. We have focus groups, we have reading groups in each of the areas. On every single weekend, in every area, there's leafleteering where people put out our propaganda. And this is our own stories, by the way. Yeah. And then there's the trainer course. So everyone in this organization is ordinary members, ordinary community members. Some of them have never gone to school, some of them haven't finished school, and some of them have. But it's the members of the organization who facilitates every process, whether it be workshops, etc., etc. Then there's the pickets, and I think everybody knows the protesting, and government doesn't really like us for that, because we take to the streets when necessary, and we make gains through taking to the streets. But we give them enough opportunity to come and meet our demands. They, in most cases, they don't want to, and then we are forced to take to the streets. Many of our comrades have been arrested. Some of them still walking, going to the court because the cases haven't been dropped. And one of the things that the organization lacks is we never have legal representation, so it's always about fundraising and how do we get our comrades out of jail, etc., etc. So there's different groups that we're organizing. The one other thing that I quickly want to go through is that everything that we have is being privatized at the moment. All our services are being privatized. At the moment, they're busy introducing the water management device, and they introduce it to people as an opportunity to be able to manage your own water and that you won't have a bill. But it's actually all lies. Through the work that we're doing in the communities, none of what they are saying to people is true. And they're so desperate to put these meters in that they have 10-year-olds signing on behalf of their parents to accept this meter. Parents are in work, they come home and they have this meter. So this meter provides people with 350 liters of water. Now just imagine if you flush the toilet once, 15 liters of water is gone. So if there's 10 people in that house and toilet is flushed once, there's 150 liters of water already gone. And the average household in Cape Town is about 14 to 15 people, and it goes up. Because it's people in the house, it's extended family, and then there's the backyarders who live there as well. So through this, the 350 liters of water is clearly not enough. People are beginning to sell water to each other in the community, and the situation keeps on getting worse. Our water is being privatized, our electricity is being privatized, our schools are being privatized. In fact, they wanted to close down 12 schools. But there's such a lot of children at home that doesn't find any space in school. So they want to close 12 schools, not to close the school down, but to change it into private schools and so onwards. So I guess that's where I end. Thank you very much. Thank you. In terms of the political parties, I would say the political parties hasn't come to the party. They're still at home. They've gotten to come to the party. So, and a good example of that is that in '94 we were promised that Cape Town would be shack-free in 2014. Then came the ANC, and they said it would be shack-free in 2030. And then came the new political party, which is the DA. Very white party, and they said 2040. So none of these political parties are really interested in. At the moment, there's a big fight about who is in charge. The ANC is fighting to hold on to power, and the DA is very excited about winning the party, making gains. In other words, hoping that the national elections will be theirs. Then there's the EFF, which is the newest party, which in my view is just a populist party. And then very quickly they changed their minds from nationalization to maybe we must just give them a little bit so that they can. And for me, for a party to contradict themselves so quickly, there's definitely something wrong with that. But the political parties has not come forward to assist communities. In fact, they're oppressing us even more than we used to be. In terms of the social movements, I think you're absolutely right when you say NGOs do play a huge role in how social movements react and how they support each other. So one example where we situated as an organization is in a building called the Community House, and there are many NGOs within this, and even unions in the same building. And the difficulty that we have as an organization is we don't have any funds to, funds like the unions have, funds like these other NGOs have, but as an example, we'll have a workshop, and the comrades will decide which workshop they're going to go to depending on which one gives the most reimbursement, and that obviously isn't us. They will decide to which meeting they're going to go to in terms of where the best food is, and that's not us, that won't be us. So yeah, it's important for us to, and we've had these conversations with NGOs and said, look, you guys have to consider because they're all talking about social movements and building movements and supporting movements, but how are you supporting movements when in fact you're tearing them apart, or you're making people decide where they actually want to go, when they should be the organizations or the NGOs who pulls together these organizations, and that's not happening, but it's a big debate within Cape Town at the moment. Then I think the government is really attacking us at the moment. So just recently, the Minister of Human Settlement said that, Lindiwe Sisulu said that all those under the age of 40 no longer qualifies for social housing. So, and a reason for that is because they haven't been affected by apartheid. Now, I can tell my story of why I think, and I'm just 40 now, but last year this was announced and I was scared, I was freaked out because I'm not going to get anything. Where am I going to live with my children? And the reason for this is, like she said, we weren't affected by apartheid. But in fact, when I look back into my history, my father's parents owned in District 6 where they were living before they were evicted, forcefully removed from there. They owned land. They had chickens, they had horses, and my grandfather had a shop on the corner where he was selling flowers, and suddenly they were removed from there and they were all put in this tiny house, 2 rooms, and the whole family was there, and they've never recovered from that. They are a little disgruntled family, they don't even like each other, but that wasn't the case when they were living in District 6. It has changed, so if they weren't removed from District 6 and we still had all that opportunities of running a shop, etc., then how was I not affected by apartheid? So yeah, we really being marginalized and pushed around by the government. And for us, this statement that all those under 40 will not qualify is an outright attack on the working class and on the youth especially. And my story is not special. It's a story of activism within Cape Town, and mothers and fathers struggle every day to be able to sustain themselves. And then also we have to hold on to this organization, which is very fragile. And of course, the government, they really want us to not be active, and they will do anything. In fact, they will come and they will give a job to our leadership. In fact, all our leadership has been offered a job as a ward councillor, or a job taking a tender for who cleans the community, all kinds of things. And it's difficult to hold on to people in that way. So I've got a very supportive husband who's an activist with me. In fact, I think he's a lot more active than I am. But we've worked out, how this is important to us. There's no way we're going to be able to achieve anything unless we accept where we're at and we're willing to live in this backyard for the rest of our lives. We have no choice. We have to get up in the morning and we have to go and continue to knock on doors to get people to be part of this organization. And then the more people we engage with, the more people we bring on board, the less responsibility we have, because it's a collective leadership. It's not about me. It's about, people say, oh, you have to get paid for what you're doing. And we say, no, as long as there's unemployed people living in Cape Town, there will be leadership for this organization. So we don't need to get paid. Otherwise, we'll be fighting about the money. Who's getting the money instead of who's building the organization. I'm sorry, I didn't write that down. With the government. Okay. So in the work that we're doing throughout the communities, we encourage communities to engage with government on the local levels. etc. There's all these local municipality meetings. At the moment, there's a very important process happening in Cape Town, which is the IDP. It's the Integrated Development Plan for the city. And this integrated development plan is supposed to be a plan where the city comes out with a draft, and then the community together with the city either agrees or whatever the case may be, and then it gets adopted. But these processes are not real. So there's no real participation processes. They come and they give you a 15-minute presentation, and they say this is what's going to happen for the next 5 years. And when you say, but what about housing? They say, no, we don't have money for housing now, but we can do a park. We can build you a park. We can build nice parks for your children to play in. And so there's no real participation. And in fact, when they leave with their presentation as is, and it gets implemented. And they claim that is what we want. But our communities have been in this IDP process very strong, where we attend in full, and we argue, even though we don't get anywhere, because they would, for the whole community of 4,000 people, have a hall a lot smaller than this. So they actually ensure that everybody can't get in. And those who they let in is people that they know, the ward councillors' friends, etc., etc. And those people say, yes, we want parks, and can we get a nice road, and then our street light isn't working. Nothing to do with the real issues that's going on within the community.
Okay, so thank you very much.